Welcome. If you're here for knights in shining armor, gallant heroes, or roaring fireplaces in velvet-draped halls, you're in the wrong century. Tonight, we're not going to castles. We're going to huts. Smoke-filled, straw-stuffed, half-frozen huts. This is the Middle Ages. Not the one with tapestries and troubadours. The one with wet firewood, cold stew, and an existential crisis made entirely of snow. You won't find romance here. What you will find are peasants, ordinary people, surviving the kind of winter that doesn't knock. It barges in, kicks your fire out, and helps itself to your last turnip. Their lives weren't glamorous, they weren't noble, but they were brutally real. And they made it, one frostbitten toe at a time. So if slow, grim history with a dry aftertaste of existential dread helps you sleep, you're in good company. Wrap up, lower the lights, and prepare to spend the next hour huddled in a hut made of mud, smoke, and increasingly questionable choices. Let's begin, not with triumph, but with the weather. Because in the medieval world, winter wasn't a season, it was the main antagonist. You don't need a calendar to know winter's coming. Your joints break the news before the sky does. First, a stiffness in your fingers, then a grayness in the clouds. The kind that doesn't storm, just sulks. The animals notice too. They go quiet, like they've made peace with something you haven't figured out yet. There's no grand arrival, no dramatic blizzard with swirling music. Winter just shows up, like debt, quiet, inconvenient, inevitable. Autumn doesn't end so much as retreat, slowly, bitterly, like it's been evicted. The wind begins to sneak in through every crack it can find, poking around your house like a nosy in-law, noting all the places where warmth once lived. You pretend it's just a chill, a passing breeze. You add a holy cloak over your October tunic and call it preparedness. You tell yourself you'll patch it up soon. You won't. The threads run out, the needle's bent, and your hands are too numb to care. We like to talk about how people in the past prepared for winter, as if that was always an option. The truth is, winter often arrives while you're still finishing autumn, still hoping to salt the last fish, dry the last beans, fix the part of the roof that always leaks near Uncle Gon's sleeping mat. Spoiler, you didn't. Now the snow leaks in where the rain used to, so you make do. You wedge straw in the wall gaps. You hang blankets over doors that won't close properly. You shuffle the bedding closer to the hearth and pretend that proximity to the fire is the same thing as heat. It's not. You don't burn wood all day. That would be a luxury. Fire is for cooking and for pretending you're not freezing during that 1 hour after dusk, when the family gathers around and tells the same 3 stories as last year. The rest of the time, you rely on layers, movement, and sheer spite. The chickens are quiet. The pigs are eerily still. The cow remains deeply unimpressed, as always. Outside, the ground has turned from mud to stone. What used to be a path is now a trap. Frozen ruts that grab at boots and twist ankles for fun. Your breath escapes in clouds. Your toes consider mutiny. The sky, meanwhile, has turned into a low-hanging threat. You stare at it, hoping to read something into the clouds. They don't reply. They never do. But they do mean you won't see the sun for another 2 weeks, maybe more. In town, the jokes dry up. Even the priest's sermons get gloomier. Cold is God's way of humbling man, he says. You wonder if God could consider more constructive feedback mechanisms. Then, one morning, it happens. Snow. Not a blizzard. Not yet. Just a thin, stubborn layer, like someone dusted the village in powdered disappointment. But it changes everything. Now, there's no more denial. The earth has closed shop for the season. Nothing will grow, nothing will ripen. Whatever you managed to stash away is all you have. If you didn't stash enough, well, hope you enjoy the culinary diversity of weak broth and desperation. You start counting things in bundles, not days. How many bundles of firewood? How many sacks of oats? How many turnips? How many times can we boil the same bone before it gives up? You stop checking the calendar. The calendar stopped caring about you weeks ago. And still, life continues. Not forward, just sideways. You keep your hands busy so your thoughts don't start wandering off to dangerous places. You spin wool, not just to make cloth, but to convince yourself that movement equals progress. Sometimes, it almost feels like it does. Even the animals seem to understand that something has shifted. They press closer to the hut. You let some of the warmer ones inside, a goat or two, the better-behaved chickens. Not because you want to, because body heat now counts as currency. And when you wake up in the morning with a goat breathing on your face, you don't scream. You just sigh, shift a little, and try not to breathe through your nose. This is not the beginning of a story. This is the beginning of endurance. Winter doesn't test you, it attempts to end you. Quietly, slowly, without apology. And tomorrow, it gets worse. Fire is not comfort. It is survival. And in a medieval winter, survival is an all-day chore. You don't sit by the hearth because it's cozy. You sit there because everywhere else in the house is trying to kill you. The floor is stone-cold dirt. The walls are wind-sculpted suggestions of structure, and the roof drips memories of storms past. But the fire is slightly less hostile. And it's never enough. You don't light a fire to relax. You light it to cook the only food you have, and to pretend your socks aren't still wet from 5 days ago. The smoke fills the house because chimneys are a luxury, not a feature. There's a hole in the roof, and if the wind feels generous, the smoke might leave through it. If not, it lingers. You don't notice anymore. You're part smoke now. Firewood, meanwhile, is a full-time obsession. You don't gather firewood. You hunt it. You curse at it. You dream about it. You build your day around it. You cut it in autumn. Or at least, you meant to. But the harvest ran late. Your axe was borrowed and never returned. And that one goose attacked you again. So now it's December. And you're swinging a cracked blade at frozen trees like they insulted your ancestors. And when a tree finally falls, that's just the beginning. Now you have to chop it. Then haul it. Then stack it in some sad little pile against the house and pray it doesn't collapse in the night. Spoiler, it will. Then you try to burn it, even though it's wet, hisses like a snake, and produces more smoke than heat. Congratulations. Your home now smells like a smoky barn that's disappointed in your choices. And you still don't have enough. That's the golden rule of medieval winters. No matter how much firewood you have, it's never enough. By February, you're burning fence posts, broken furniture, and anything vaguely wooden. The emotional value of your belongings? Irrelevant. If it burns, it's fuel. Your family argues over who used the good log too early. You start rationing embers like treasure. You hide dry twigs under your bed like a squirrel with a hoarding problem. If you find a dry stick under the snow, you hold it up like a war trophy. Victory comes in splinters, and still the cold gets in. You seal the walls with moss. You pack cloth under the door. You sleep in layers, clothes, blankets, regret, and hope your breath doesn't freeze midair. But it always finds a way. The cold doesn't knock, it seeps. Some nights, you wake up because your toes can't remember how to feel. Other nights, you wake up because the fire has died, and the silence feels lethal. There's no such thing as sleeping peacefully in winter. There's only half sleep, a light doze between shivers and the fear of not waking up. You don't sleep alone either, not because you're sentimental, because you're practical. Body heat isn't a luxury, it's a shared survival pact. You tuck yourself between relatives and livestock and tell yourself the smell is rustic. The goat snoring next to your head, that's not a joke, that's central heating. And then there's the woodpile. It's your bank account, your meal plan, your last line of defense. And it's always shrinking. You watch it, with the same anxiety modern people watch battery life. You do mental math with every log. How many nights left? How many mornings can you afford warmth? You burn dung when you must. Peat, if you're lucky. Old shoes, if you're desperate. Each one comes with its own bouquet of regret. Dung burns hot, but the smell is haunting. Peat smells like last year's fireplace had a nervous breakdown. But you don't complain. You can't complain. Complaining uses energy, and warmth is a non-renewable resource. Your cottage turns into a blend of smoke, ash, and livestock fumes. You no longer live in a house. You live in a low-budget sauna designed by wolves. Still, you endure. Not because you're strong, but because there's no alternative. If you stop chopping, stop stacking, stop feeding the fire, the cold will move in, sit on your chest, and stay a while. So you keep going. You chop with blistered hands. You haul with a bent back. You curse the wind like it's a personal enemy. You ration warmth like gold. And you never, ever forget. You don't beat the cold. You bargain with it. Cold is painful, but hunger is patient. It waits. It whispers. It watches you count turnips in the dark and wonders which one of you will break first. You don't get hungry in the medieval sense. You stay hungry, permanently, intimately, creatively. It's not that polite, modern hunger, the kind that nudges you to check the fridge or order something light. No, this hunger gnaws. It digs in behind your ribs and makes you look at a stale onion like it might tell a joke to earn its keep. You start every day already behind. Food in winter is not a meal, it's a negotiation. You don't plan it. You stretch it. You don't eat until you're full. You eat until you're slightly less hollow. Pottage is the main dish. Every day. It's not a stew, not really. It's more like a perpetual culinary experiment, where anything remotely edible goes into the same pot and never truly comes out. Carrots, turnips, wilted greens, a bean if the gods are kind. Maybe a strip of pork fat you hid from the children. It cooks all day, every day. New ingredients go in. Old ones stay. You're not seasoning anymore. You're just trying to stop it from smelling like wet rope. It tastes like regret. You eat it anyway. Twice a day if you're lucky. Once a day if you're honest. 0 times a day if someone stole your last potato while you were out chasing the goat again. Bread is the fallback. But bread is a generous term. Most of it is made from whatever flour-like substance you can scrape together. Barley, rye, oats, lentils, or crushed acorns when things get festive. And there's always filler. Sawdust if you're bold, bark if you're desperate. It's not soft. It's not fluffy. It's a blunt object that doubles as self-defense. And sometimes it fights back. Rye left in damp storage can grow a fungus, ergot, which turns a normal loaf into a psychedelic death trap. Hallucinations, seizures, and the sudden belief that God is angry specifically at you. You call it the bread shakes. The priest calls it divine punishment. Nobody calls it lunch anymore. Meat? You don't have meat. You remember meat. You dream of it. If you were lucky enough to slaughter something in the fall, a pig, a goat, a chicken with a bad attitude, you smoked it, salted it, dried it, and then hid it from your family. Because children will eat anything, including the string you tied it with. Milk spoils quickly. So you make cheese, hard cheese, angry cheese, the kind that could double as a paperweight or a murder weapon. Butter is a myth, wrapped in cloth and buried under your mattress like treasure. Eggs? Rare. Hens stop laying in the cold. They're too busy not dying. You might get one egg a week, too, if you bribe the hen with warmth or blackmail the rooster with an axe. Fresh vegetables? That's adorable. No apples, no greens, maybe a dried plum from August, if it hasn't turned into a raisin full of sadness. Your vitamin C comes from fermented cabbage, crunchy, sour, smells like someone cried into vinegar. Keeps scurvy away. Keeps friends away, too. Preservation is everything. You salt, pickle, smoke, and dry anything that once breathed, grew, or vaguely resembled food. You hang herbs until they drop into the soup like unwanted confetti. You scrape fat into jars. You save bones for boiling. Then you boil the bones again. Nothing is wasted. If someone throws food away, they are either rich or about to be yelled at in 4 languages. And still, you're hungry. Always. The kind of hungry where you chew slowly, not for taste, but to trick your brain into thinking it's a feast. The kind of hungry that makes you consider bark, not for fire, for stew. And just when you think it can't get worse, it does. There are lean years, bad harvests, flooded fields, grain rot, animal disease. Entire villages run out of food before the snow even melts. People eat roots, moss, boiled leather. You look at your shoes and wonder which one's more tender. Spoiler, it's neither. There are whispers about worse things. Things people did when the food was gone and the neighbors were too slow. You don't ask. You just look at the stew, then look away. But even in the best years, you don't eat to enjoy. You eat to continue. If someone offers a sliver of honeycomb or a real apple slice, it's not a treat. It's a religious experience. And then it's gone in 3 bites, and the hunger returns, like it forgot its scarf. Still, you endure. You learn to scrape the pot, to chew every crumb, to stare at a shriveled turnip like it's smiling at you. You don't call it dining. You call it not dying. Because in a medieval winter, food is never just food. It's hope. It's memory. It's survival, in the form of something vaguely chewable. And if you're lucky, tonight's stew won't make you see angels, unless they're carrying dry bread. You don't choose to get sick in a medieval winter. You just wake up one morning and realize your joints are angry, your throat is gravel, and your nose is trying to abandon your face. Congratulations. You're now battling something that doesn't have a name, just symptoms and rumors. Is it a cold? The flu? A curse from that time you skipped mass and stole a second egg? Nobody knows. Nobody cares. It's yours now. Getting sick is less of an event and more of a seasonal tradition. The hut is damp. The air is thick with livestock breath. The fire died last night and took your will to live with it. Hygiene? That's a myth. You've been breathing in wood smoke, mold, and goat dandruff since October. If you're lucky, it's just a cough. If not, it's the medieval version of pneumonia, which is to say a slow-motion exit. Everyone's sick. The kids are coughing. The elders are wheezing. Even the chickens sound congested. And nobody covers their mouth, because cloth is too valuable to waste on snot. The remedies are worse than the symptoms. Someone brings you nettle tea, brewed in the same pot used to cook yesterday's stew and wash this morning's socks. It tastes like boiled betrayal. Then comes the bleeding. That's right. Someone suggests the problem is too much blood. So out come the dull knives and friendly leeches. Does it work? Absolutely not. But you'll feel so lightheaded you'll forget you ever felt worse. Fasting is another favorite, because clearly, what a malnourished body really needs in a time of illness is even less food. Bread is gone. Pottage is gray. You're living on hope and hot water. If you're lucky, someone hangs herbs above your bed and calls it protection. If you're unlucky, they bring the priest. Now you're really in trouble. The priest doesn't bring medicine. He brings Latin. He brings holy water that smells like mildew. And he brings the tone, the soft, sorrowful one that says, "Start repenting. Time's short." You confess everything, even sins you didn't commit, just to be thorough. Meanwhile, the village healer is mixing dried moss with prayers and applying it to your chest. You smile politely while it burns like judgment. Rest? Hilarious. You don't get to rest. There's firewood to chop, animals to feed, and children to keep alive. So you stagger out of bed, wrap yourself in every cloth you own, and shuffle through snow like a ghost with chores. And you cough. Oh, how you cough. You cough until your ribs revolt. You cough until people start looking nervous. You cough and tell everyone it's just the weather. They nod. They lie. Everyone knows. Then come the real signs. Fever. Delirium. The rattling breath that sounds like someone trying to exhale their soul. You stop eating. You stop moving. Someone puts a cloth on your forehead. It does nothing. They do it anyway. The fire burns low. The air smells like damp wool and whatever herbs they found behind the chicken coop. You sleep. You sweat. You shiver. Repeat. And sometimes you wake up. The fever breaks. You can breathe. You can move. You're alive. But not everyone is. You look around. Someone is missing. No one talks about it. You just notice the empty space, the untouched blanket, the silence. If you recover, it's not like in the stories. There's no triumphant standing, no grateful weeping. You just sit up, dizzy, starving, and 5 pounds lighter. The house still smells like fear and goat, and the chores never stopped. Welcome back. You try to walk. Your legs disagree. You try to eat. Your stomach negotiates. You cough once, and everyone flinches. You're not contagious anymore, probably, but no one wants to take chances, so they keep a slight distance, just enough to feel safe, not enough to bring comfort. You don't mention the dreams you had during the fever. They wouldn't understand. You're not sure you do. You return to spinning wool, to mending cloaks, to feeding animals that still refuse to be grateful. And you keep glancing over your shoulder. Because in a house this small, sickness doesn't leave. It lingers. It waits. It watches. You survived. But it almost didn't go that way. So you sleep lighter. You eat slower. You pray harder. Not because you're more religious now, but because you've seen what happens when you're not. Sickness in winter isn't a storm, it's a shadow. It lies down next to you at night, breathes on your neck, and asks if you're ready. Sometimes you are, sometimes you're not. But either way, it doesn't ask for permission. In the medieval winter, you don't just answer to the cold. You answer to everyone above you, which is, statistically speaking, almost everyone. Authority isn't a concept, it's a condition, like frostbite, or hunger, or that one cousin who keeps borrowing your axe and forgetting to return it. There is no privacy. There is no freedom. There is only structure, and your job is to know where you fall inside it, which is usually at the bottom, underneath the pigs. Let's start with the Lord. He owns the land. Technically, you don't live here. You exist here by his continued tolerance. You farm his fields. You give him your grain. And when he rides past on a horse so clean it looks offended by dirt, you bow. Even if you're in the middle of throwing up from bad cabbage, he doesn't notice. He's not supposed to. If you disobey, you don't get a warning. You get a punishment. Swift, public, and deeply humiliating. The stocks are always available. And there's nothing like freezing in a wooden clamp while your neighbors try to decide whether they pity you or just want to throw turnips, usually both. But the Lord isn't your only problem. There's the church. God may be omniscient, but his representatives are much more hands-on. The priest knows who skipped Mass. He knows who spoke during prayers. He knows who didn't tithe, and he has opinions. Tithing isn't optional. It's 10% of everything. Not 10% of what's left after feeding your children. No, 10% of everything, even the sad-looking chicken that hasn't laid since October. And if you fall short, you don't get a friendly note. You get a sermon, the loud kind, in front of everyone, with extra Latin to make it feel more official. The priest isn't rich, but he's noticeably warmer than the rest of you. He drinks wine. He has real bread. He sleeps in a bed that doesn't moo. He reminds you that suffering is part of God's plan, especially your suffering. His, not so much. Questioning this arrangement is not advised. In fact, questions in general are frowned upon. Why does Father Thomas get more firewood than the rest of us? Why is working on a Saint's Day worse than starving on a Tuesday? Why does God's house have better insulation? Ask those out loud, and suddenly you're disruptive. Or worse, heretical. Say too much, and you're wearing a scold's bridle, a metal mask designed to silence both your mouth and your dignity. Justice is not a system. It's a stick held by someone with a title. The constable is usually a farmer with authority issues and access to rope. He doesn't solve crimes. He preserves order, which is a nice way of saying, don't be inconvenient. Steal a loaf of bread, lose a hand. Disrespect a noble, lose your tongue. Have an opinion, good luck. If you're a woman, congratulations, the rules are worse. Obey your father, then your husband, then your oldest son if both of them die before you do. Speak softly, work constantly, and for the love of everything, never heal anyone with herbs. That's how witches happen. All it takes is one bad harvest, one cough no one can explain, or one weird dream someone has after eating moldy rye. And suddenly, you're the reason the goats froze. There's no defense. There's no trial. There's just firewood. And a crowd. And don't think your neighbors will protect you. They're just trying to survive too, which means they're just as likely to accuse you as they are to lend you fire. That woman who smiled at you in church, she's also the one who whispered to the priest that you own too many dried herbs. The cousin who helped patch your roof last spring, he's now listing every time you skipped Vespers. Paranoia is a community tradition. Everyone watches everyone else, because when the frost comes, someone always needs to be blamed. And in the winter, punishment hits harder. A slap in July stings. A slap in January breaks something. No ointments, no apology. Just you, the snow, and the memory of warmth. So you stay quiet. You nod at the right time. You laugh at the Lord's jokes. You kneel deeply. You keep your voice low and your head lower. Obedience is not submission, it's strategy. Even your thoughts learn to whisper. Children learn early. How to speak to nobles. How to sit still in mass. How to avoid being noticed for the wrong reasons. You don't raise dreamers. You raise survivors. And if the cost of that is silence, so be it. In a frozen world where everything can be taken, warmth, food, health, freedom, your best defense is to keep your head down, your tongue still, and your fire burning just high enough not to be suspicious. You're not alone out here. And that's not comforting. That's not the soft, gentle, "you're not alone" people say while offering tea and sympathy. No. This is the kind you whisper to yourself when something howls outside, and you realize the door doesn't latch properly. Because winter in the medieval world isn't just cold. It's crowded. Everything that's hungry is moving. The wolves come first. In the summer, they stay in the woods. In the winter, they follow your chimney smoke. They're starving. They're silent. They watch from the tree line with yellow eyes and quiet judgment. You don't often see them, but sometimes, just sometimes, you hear the snow crunching behind you. Sometimes your goat looks too nervous. Sometimes the chickens stop clucking all at once. And that silence, that's when you know something is watching. They rarely attack outright. Wolves are patient. They wait for you to fall, for your lantern to sputter out, for the wind to cover your footsteps so no one hears you scream. But wolves aren't the worst part. Rats don't hibernate. They move in, behind the grain sacks, under the straw beds, inside the boots you forgot to stuff with rags. They eat everything: flour, soap, leather. They chew through baskets, belts, and books. They multiply like a tax. You wake up at night and hear them chewing, not quickly, but thoughtfully. Like they're reviewing your pantry inventory in real time. And when food gets low enough, they stop being pests. They start being options. Cats help, if you have one. But a good mouser in winter is worth more than a child. And cats know it. They sit near the hearth, smug, warm, refusing to hunt until you offer them something in return. If they're in a good mood, the rats disappear. If not, well, hope you enjoy crunchy bread with bonus protein. Then there are the dogs. Not yours, the village ones. Half wild, half starved. full of bad intentions. They roam in loose packs now, chasing chickens, sniffing at doors, watching for someone who doesn't walk fast enough. You don't meet their eyes. You don't trust their growls. You hope they find something easier to kill than you. Sometimes it's lynxes, or boars, or something that doesn't leave clear tracks, but still takes a chicken without a sound. Sometimes it's just rumors of things that move through the woods, upright, of strangers with no faces, of shadows that stand too still for too long. You tell yourself it's nothing, and then you hang charms above the door anyway. Sprigs of herbs, bits of bone, symbols carved into the beams with a dull knife and nervous hands. Protection, they say. From what? No one really knows. But no one removes them either. Predators don't need fur. Sometimes it's people. Hungry people. Desperate people. Your own neighbors, if it comes to that. Bandits don't take the winter off. They just bundle up. And if they think you have food, fire, or even a half-decent chicken, they'll come for it. So you sleep light, with a rusted blade within reach, not because it will stop anyone, but because it might give them second thoughts. You don't make noise at night. You don't light fires too bright. You don't answer knocks unless you're sure they came from a hand. Because in the dark, everything sounds like footsteps. Even wind. Especially wind. You start to learn the language of winter. The way snow looks when something heavy walked through it. The way tree branches bend after something brushed against them. The way silence sounds when it's waiting. You check the ground for prints each morning. Fox, dog, boar. Human? You don't know. You don't want to know. You shovel the tracks away. Erase the evidence. Try to make your home look less interesting to whatever left them. Inside, the problem isn't just what's outside. It's the rot. Mold creeps across your food stores faster than you can scrape it off. Mice burrow into your salted fish. Your own dog looks at your pantry like it's planning something. Even the birds feel off. Crows watch you from the fence. 3 in a row. Never good. They don't blink. They don't leave. You tell yourself it's superstition. But you keep glancing back anyway. Your dreams shift. Teeth, eyes, the sound of breath behind you. You don't tell anyone. They're having the same dreams. By late winter, the lines between real and not real blur. You hear things in the woods, see things near the shed, catch something move across the edge of your vision. It's probably nothing. It always is. Until it's not. So you stay inside. You bar the door with furniture that used to be sentimental. You double knot the rope that holds it shut. You don't ask what that noise was. You don't check. Because in a medieval winter, safety isn't being alone. It's not being noticed. There's a lie people like to tell about spring, that it arrives in March, that it's sunshine and birdsong and green shoots bursting from the ground like applause, that it comes right on time just when you're at your lowest to lift you back up. That's adorable. In the Middle Ages, spring doesn't arrive. It staggers in, like someone who's been mugged, frostbitten, and asked to smile anyway. March is just more winter with better PR. The snow might melt, but the wind still bites. The sun comes back, but only in theory. And even when the thaw begins, it's not relief, it's mud. Deep, sucking, soul-staining mud. Your boots disappear into it. Your hope tries to follow. By the time the first crocus appears, you're not rejoicing. You're staring at it like it owes you something. Because you made it through the winter, but not untouched. What the cold didn't kill, it broke. Your tools are cracked. Your roof leaks worse than before. Your body moves like it forgot how. And the hunger? The hunger hasn't left. It's just quieter now, curled in your gut like a sleeping dog. Your pantry's empty. The rats are still bold. Your animals are thinner. Your family is smaller. Some didn't make it. You don't ask who. You already know. You saw the door that never opened again, the chimney that never smoked, the silence that settled over a neighbor's house like ash, the graveyard filled before the ground thawed. Some were buried shallow, marked with sticks. Some were stored in barns, wrapped tight, waiting for the earth to soften. You walk past them on your way to the fields. You don't look long. You don't speak their names out loud. There's no time for grief, only repairs. Because now comes the work. Winter stole your strength, and now spring demands what's left. You patch the roof with string and spit. You plant seeds with fingers still cracked and raw. You haul wood with a back that's half memory, half ache. You don't rest. Rest is for the dead, and you're not lucky enough for that. You dig, you sow, you mend. You don't smile. You don't celebrate. You endure. Again. And maybe, just maybe, something grows. Not much. A sprout. A weed, probably. But it's green. And for one fleeting second, you feel something that might almost resemble hope. You don't call it that. Hope is dangerous. Hope is what got people killed in February. Instead, you call it something to do. You feed your animals. You boil another root. You scrape the last of the salt from the bottom of the barrel and call it seasoning. You try not to remember how cold it got, how quiet it became, how you stopped talking in full sentences just to save breath. You try not to remember the dreams, the fevered ones, or the ones where you were warm and full and woke up chewing on your own sleeve. The scars stay, not the visible kind, the other ones. You flinch at loud sounds. You count food twice. You wrap your cloak tighter, even in the sun. You listen for wolves in spring. You learn to plant earlier, to hoard harder, to trust less. And still, you don't talk about it. No one does. When someone asks how your winter went, you say the same thing everyone else says. We made it. That's it. That's the whole story. Everything else lives in the spaces between words. You see it in how your neighbor walks with a limp now, in how your cousin stopped laughing altogether, in the empty spot near the fire no one comments on. There's no parade, no badge, no reward. Just another sunrise, just another pot to stir, just another season of pretending it wasn't that bad. But deep down, you know. Survival is not triumph. It's not noble. It's not pretty. It's just proof that, for whatever reason, the cold didn't win this time. Not because you were stronger, not because you were smarter, just because you lasted longer. And tomorrow, you'll plant a little more. Sleep a little lighter. Listen a little harder. Because winter always comes back. And next time, it might be worse. So you sharpen your blade. You restock your firewood. You whisper a prayer. Not for miracles, just for one more season. Because in this world, making it through winter is the closest thing you'll ever get to a miracle. And if you're still standing when the thaw finally ends, well, that's enough. That's all you get.